Hi everyone, people have been asking me to show a video on how to make up your own pigment pastes. Now, why would you want to do that, you may ask? Well, three reasons that spring to mind immediately anyway. One is when you take the lid off your mica powder and you're tipping it into your resin and you're mixing it around, it flies everywhere and there's lots of dust involved. So we could get that stage out of the way straight away. The other reason is that sometimes the colour that you see in the pot is not what you get once you mix it with resin. So if you've pre-mixed it with resin, you can straight away see what you've got. Third reason is you can mix it up strongly, get a very strong colour and make sure you've got no lumps in it. Now, I don't know if any of you have done this. This is the big reason for me. When you're mixing your powder into your resin, you sometimes get little floaty drops come to the surface and you don't always spot them, and it's a bit of a nuisance. Sometimes it doesn't matter, other times it does. But again, you're getting that problem out of the way. So there you go. We're going to have a go today, and I have got a proper beautiful genuine white pigment paste. I bought one. This is from Just For You online, so I can show you what it's supposed to look like and how thick it is. If I tip that to one side, I don't know if you can see that. It's really thick. Now, I don't think, hand on heart, you're ever going to replicate what they do with a proper bought one. However, this is a fun thing to do, and if you've got a load of pigment powders and you're thinking, I'll have a go at this, then why not? So pigments, micas, that sort of thing. Powder wand, largely. So, there we go. That's what we're going to be doing today. Now, the other thing, I've seen a video with someone making this up using a pestle and mortar. Now, I bought this little baby one, which has now got all stained from doing this, just off Amazon. I'll put you a link for this. And the reason for using this is you can really break down those annoying little clumps of powder that can spoil your pieces. So it takes a bit of cleaning up. It's not fun to do. I've got a load of little tiny screw top jars. Again, I'll pop you the link for these down below too, because I think they're smashing. Aren't they sweet? Lovely little things, and they're just a nice size for me. Now, whether this is a cost-effective thing to do, who knows? Because these that's a big jar and they are just not that expensive. So, don't let this put you off actually buying the real thing. So, I've got some powders here. This one is a kind of a chameleon-y one. Don't know where I got it from. It's not very chameleon, it's just a bit, but I thought we could use that. Again, this is a random one. Can't remember where I bought that from. No labels, as you see. It's just a cheap one. And I thought, well, we could quite happily sacrifice a whole bottle of that because it's not one of my posh Let's Resin ones or anything like that. The other ones I've got to try this with are this beautiful red satin pigment. This does this. This stuff's fabulous. Look at that. That's what it does. That red colour there. It's like a deep brick red. But look, this also shows you what I mean about it looking slightly different colour once you mix it up. It's a lot more vivid, and look at that beautiful effect. It's one of the ones from Just For You online, so I'm going to mix up a bit of this because I do use it a lot, but it's a good sized pot, so I don't mind using some of that to do this with. And here is again another one from Just For You online, and this is hot chili red pigment, so it's no pearlescence in this as far as I can see. So we'll see what that one does. The final thing I want to try, and this one actually is important, I bought some titanium dioxide colour pigment. It's only a little sample bag and it's strong white. So I want to see just how white this is, and I do want to mix it into a paste. So there we go. That's what we've got to play with here. I'm going to put my gloves on and obviously get all PPE'd up. So back in a moment. That you're going to use either a part A or a part B, it doesn't matter, of whatever leftover resin you've got. So this is a great way to use up any little leftovers. I'm going to pour this out into this little pot and we'll get mixing. Now obviously this isn't going to go hard in your pot because it's only part A or part B. Without the other part, you're not going to get it curing on you, are you? That's the idea. So here we go. I'm going to put quite a lot. So this is the idea, is that you can put an awful lot of your powder in. You want it to be, as the name's the clue, paste. So let's see how that takes. Isn't that pretty? This is only a cheap one as well. Now this is where you do get the powder flying around. Now I'm going to get this started initially just by stirring. So obviously you want your mask and everything because of it being resin, which is horrible evil stuff, as we know. But also you don't want to be breathing in that dust. That's rather prettier than I expected it to be. Now as you can see, it is mixing in nicely. It's a little bit lumpy though. And can you see that? It's a little bit lumpy. How weird, it looks more pink on my camera. That must be that little bit of chameleon in it. Rather in my view than on my camera. But yeah, you can see there's a texture to it. It hasn't mixed in very thoroughly. It's fine, not a problem. I'm going to keep shoveling this in. Actually, let's not bother with the spoon. Let's just chuck a load in. There we are, look. Like I said, you do want it to be a paste. I'm just keeping a little bit back in my pot, because obviously if you do the thing where you paint pigment, or rather mica powders onto a mould, you're going to need some kept as your powder. So don't go doing this with all of your powders that you think you might want to do that with at some point. So again, just mixing that down, pushing it in, and then we'll do the proper pestle and mortar thing. Nice and thick. Is that going to be too much for one of my little jars, if I ask myself? You're going to lose some in trying to clean the pot up afterwards. You just are. But this is such a satisfying thing to do. I can't begin to tell you. And of course, if you want to mix up colours, no reason why you shouldn't mix them. Now, as I said, you can see there's a I think you can probably see, there's kind of a grittiness to this still. And that's what we're going to get rid of. If I just keep going round with this. Now I'm going to fast forward this, because all I'm going to be doing, you can hear me almost grinding at it. I'm going to be doing this for a couple of minutes. Okay, I'm back. Now, already I can see that that is smoother. All I've done, really, is I have broken the powder down. Now you can carry on doing that for as long as you like. It's extremely therapeutic. Can I just tell you, if you're having a bad day, do some of this. Now, a bit of a clean-up job required, of course, and it is getting my little pestle and mortar stained. I've tried putting this through the dishwasher and all sorts. It doesn't come off. There's quite strong pigments in these powders. So, just trying to be clean, because obviously one colour is going to transfer to another if I don't. Now we're going to pour this into this little pot. And yeah, you can see that is really thick. Can you see? Really thick. It is like a paste. So that's going to take a while to pour over. I will get a little stick and I will scrape around. Maybe I'll use this spoon actually, that might be better. But I can already see there's no grittiness going on in it now. Those powders have really broken down. And of course, if it stays mixed up in your little pot, it will carry on kind of integrating into that little bit of resin. And yeah, that does all fit in that little pot. They're bigger than they look. So what am I going to put your links for? Yeah, pestle and mortar and pot. And I will put you links. I don't think I can put you links for these powders because I've had them so long I don't know where they came from. But I'll put you links for the powders that I use most nowadays. Yeah. Largely it will be either the Let Resin ones, or I've got some Mica Pro, I think that's how you say it, ones. Those are great for chameleon as well. There's the Let Resin, and of course the Just For You online ones. But at the moment they're colour, I've only got a few of their colour range. I can vouch for them. It's very good so far. Anyway, there we go. So that's in the little pot. For a little clean up job, and now I need to go and clean this pot. I do use just my Wonder Wipes for all of this. Links for the Wonder Wipes are also down below. And I'm going to wipe the side of the pot, make sure I haven't got any around the lid. And there we go. We've got a little pot of paste. That'll look nice on my shelf with those lids on as well. Right, I'll be back in a bit. Just going to clean this up. But basically, we're just going to go around with a cloth and wipe it all out. Okay, I'm back. Now, the sensible people amongst you will be saying, and probably shouting at the screen, why didn't you do the white one first while your pot was the cleanest? I'd love to come up with a sensible answer to that, but I can't. Yeah. It'd be dangerous if I had a brain. Right, this is going to need a lot of powder, and this is going to be the gold, and I'm just going to tip the whole lot in. Like I said, I'm going to sacrifice this pot. I've got several pots of the same colour. And this was one of the cheaper ones. So, first of all then, as before, we're going to give it a little stir, just to get the dust all settled. And hope that I haven't overdone the resin, because I don't really want to dip into another pot of this gold. It's a very nice rich gold. You can see already it's starting to look like crumbles rather than dust. And that's because I'm going quite carefully and kind of pushing it down as I mix. I think what I'll do before I get onto the white, I'll take a break and I'll stick this little pot through the dishwasher. Make sure it's as clean as I can get it. Now this one demonstrates, because it's a cheap powder, this one demonstrates beautifully what I mean about the lumps and things. Watch this. I'm going to mix it up and you'll think that's pretty well mixed. There might be a little bit of powder around the side still, but it looks pretty well mixed. Okay. Now watch. Gold usually does it better than anything. I think I'm going to do it now I said that, is it? What I'm looking for is extra gold patches to appear. It's starting to here. You get little patches that are just too gold, and you just know that's where you've got a clump of pigment, clump of the powder is surfacing, because you thought you'd mixed it and you haven't. Maybe this one isn't going to do it. I've mixed it better than I thought. But that is what happens. I'm sure you've all seen that. Again, you can see it's gritty. Just going to go around with the... Is it the pestle? Is this the bowl, the mortar, and that's the pestle? I think it's that way around. So I'm just going to go around with that. I'll speed it up for you. So I've been doing that for probably 3 or 4 minutes. Like I said, I don't really time it. Once it starts to get really nice and creamy, that's good enough for me. So a quick clean up. You can see it's a really thick paste now. I did add some more gold. Suddenly realised just how many pots of gold I'd got, so it wasn't really too much of a big shakes to do that. Now, there's something I must say here. I have absolutely no idea how I end up with so much of one part of my resin left over to do this. Is it just me? I always think I measure it carefully. I tend to use 1-to-1s. It shouldn't be difficult. Normally I wouldn't mix brands. This is a different brand to what I normally use for my day-to-day resin nowadays. And I normally wouldn't mix brands because they don't mix. But for doing this with, because there's so little, I don't think it matters. But if you have got some of your usual brand that you normally use, that would be better, I'm sure. But there we go. Blop. Yeah, because you shouldn't mix your brands because they have different chemical makeups, don't they? However, I think on this tiny scale that we're putting in here, it won't matter. But so how I end up with more of one part left than the other, God only knows. I know it's probably just incompetence. However, I don't very often have problems with the resin not curing, so whatever I'm doing, it's not horribly wrong, is it? There we go. So we've got a little pot of gold. Going to clean up again. That's the other thing I use an awful lot of. I should have shares in Wonder Wipes. Especially doing this. This is ever such a messy job. Sometimes the messy jobs are the fun ones. Right, look at this stuff. If you haven't seen this before, I do use it in quite a lot of my videos. That is incredibly silver. Now, it's just occurred to me that it might be interesting to see what that does if we make it into a paste. I mean, I'm sure this isn't what it's supposed to be used for. But it's a lovely big tub, so I can afford to sacrifice a nice big dollop for this purpose. Let's see what that looks like. Right, again, going to mix it in first. This stuff is a really fine one. It doesn't just float on the resin, it floats in the air. You can probably see it floating around, in fact. So I am definitely going to do a bit of this first. Maybe there's an argument for putting the powder in first and the resin on top, I don't know. But there will be a point at which this will start to look like, you know that scene from Terminator 2? Yeah, it's starting to. Whoa, look at that. That is amazing. Links for everything as always below, including this. If you're looking for this on their website, it's called floating silver because it will float on the surface of your pieces. I have done some videos where that happens. Looks like mercury almost, doesn't it? It's also extremely absorbent. I'm putting a lot of resin in this. But this is the last out of this bottle, more or less, I think. Which is good. This is helping my craft room clear out. Chucking stuff away. Such as bottles with not much in. I do the same with the silicone, you know. I always end up with some silicone left that I wasn't expecting. I'm going to end up with a nice big pot of this, aren't I? I think this stuff's so strong you just don't need much of the silver. But it's also gone very paste-like very quickly. Look at that. And I've ended up with a huge pot for that. I didn't think I put that much powder. Goodness me. Stuff goes a long way. And it comes in a really big tub as well. Okay, that's about where I want it. Going to go on to the pestle and mortar effect. Although looking at that, I think it's breaking down very well anyway. So welcome to a messing about in the craft room with Tracy afternoon. I'm going to lift this up so you can have a closer look. This has got to be the most satisfying one so far. Just look at that. Let resin do some metallic powders as well. I'll have to have a play with those at some point. But don't forget, normally these sort of powders, you probably want them to stay as powders, the metallics and the floating ones and stuff. You might not be wanting to do this with them. Goodness, look at that. I have got to try that in a solid resin piece at some point, in a really shiny mould. That has got to be done. I'll let you know when I do, folks. I'm also going to go and have a look and see what other colours they do this stuff in. That's unbelievable. And I have used this for a few projects before, but not like this. Look what a fantastic thick paste that is, even after all of that resin I've put in. There must just be so much stuff, whatever the stuff is, in that. Is it mica powder? Is it something else? I just don't know. Some of these some of these metallic powders I thought were just mica, you know, obviously very fancy mica powders, turn out to not be. They turn out to be actual metal. Right. I've come to the conclusion that the White will be a separate video because that is going to have to go through the dishwasher, and you know, I think then I can do a comparison as well. Right, last dribble out of this bottle. Now, red mica powder. Hard to find a good red. Wendy at Toonpish Crafts has done a good video on comparing loads of different red powders. Can I just recommend you go and have a look at Wendy's channel? I'll see if I can find you the link for that actually, because as I say, it's a really good comparison that she's done, and it's saved an awful lot of pigment hunting. Now, you know what, after my experience with the previous one, as this is one of the just for you online ones, and we now know they're very, very heavily pigmented, maybe I don't need so much. Now, what tends to happen with reds in a powder is that they're not as red when you mix them up. They tend to go pinky, and this is just slightly, it's more of a pinky red. It is still red though. Ooh. Yes, impressed with that. That is still red. And weirdly, although it doesn't look like it's pearly in the pot, it is. Okay, so I'm going to do the pestle and mortar thing again, get this just all mixed up and chucked into a pot. We can now see that that is mixing beautifully, and yeah, it's a another good example of why, you know, how powders change colour once you get them into your resin. So, okay, to watch me do this again, do you? Just quickly to show you before I go on to the next one, that is still a beautiful red. It's a slightly pinky red, only slightly. I'm really impressed actually how red that is, because yeah, reds are a pain. And it has got a little bit of pearl to it, but this is what I wanted to show you. Don't know if you can pick that up as well as my eyes can. It is a slightly different shade of red. That's more of an orange flamey red, whereas that's more of a deep, slightly sort of pinker end of the red scale, but it's still very definitely red. But that does help you to know what colours you're dealing with. Okay, lid on before I knock it everywhere. And we're going to go in with this one now. Now, this looks brown in the pot. Is it me, or does that look like brown? Maybe like a rust colour. Now, I know what this does because I showed you earlier, didn't I? I'm not going to mix up too much of it. Actually, that is quite a lot, isn't it? But I want to be able to use it still on the inside of mould, dusting it on. So I'm trying to save plenty back. Very last little dribble out of this bottle, I think. And yes, the white I'll do a comparison video with. So watch this space, I'll get that out for you very soon. But you know, you're probably looking at this and saying, yeah, this is all very well, Tracy, but what's the difference when you actually come to use it? So I will do that for you. I'm surprised how much I've got out of that still. I really thought the bottle was emptier than that. So watch with me. Believe it or not, this is the one that made that gorgeous red that looked almost like burr walnut on the that bowl. Okay, a little bit more. See if I can squeeze a little more out of this bottle. So this is a great way of making sure you don't waste any little dregs you have left of your resin. It's expensive stuff, let's face it. Now, this isn't going to use up much to do this. But this is genuinely, it's just a bit of, where is it? Glass clear deep cast part. Oh, it's even a deep cast one. There you go. That could be why I've got some left, because my maths gets really struggly with deep casts. Okay folks, that's it. Let's just have a quick look at what we've got. We have a pestle and mortar that need to go through the dishwasher. We have got, that one is a very, very thick paste. That's the Just For You Online, what's it called? Red satin. That's the Just For You Online red chili. Ripped my gloves. See, that's what happens. People say they reuse their gloves, but they degrade when you've had them in contact with resin and things. Look at that. So can I just encourage you, any crafters you hear say reuse your gloves, don't. Now I'm coming to the end of this and I'm going to go and give my hands a really good scrub, because I do have some resin allergies, but not typically to that brand. Anyway, there's your gold. We've got stunning silver, which are a little pop dirty, I see. Let's give them a good clean. To me, that's the, I'm going to have to do something with that. That is the real centrepiece of this one. And also I'd got a couple of little pots that I was from before, but I'm just tipping them into these pots. That's another chameleon one. And just, these I made about a month ago. So I'm just transferring them over now. And the powder I can see has settled a little bit, so that's something just to be aware of. You do need to stir them before you go in to use them. Okay, so that's that one done. So these pots have just arrived, so I'm just transferring them. But yeah, they do thicken in the bottom. The powder does settle. So make sure before you come to use them, give it a darn good stir. So 2 lessons we've learnt here then. 1, it's very therapeutic making pigment paste up out from your mica powders. And 2, do not reuse your gloves. My chemicals expert friend, he is internationally recognised as such, tells me never ever reuse your gloves, and that nitrile gloves are the ones to use. I think most of us do anyway. They're cheap enough and they're what they use in hospitals as well. But never reuse them. And now you see why. And I'm going to have to go and do something about this fast, because clearly my poor hand is now unprotected. But we're finished. So there we are. Everything into pots, lids on. Just going to make sure I've wiped off around the edge. And then remembering that I need to give them a good stir before I come to use them. There we are folks, I'll see you for the white one. The plan for that video, by the way, will be, I'll try 3 different ways of using it. Well, two of using this, and 1 will be real bought white pigment. Now this is titanium dioxide. This is a pure colour pigment sample, as you can see. Can't remember where I got it from, but I'll try and find you the link. So what I will do in the next video is I'll use this just as powder. I will use it as the paste that I will have made up in that video, and we'll compare that then to a bought proper white pigment paste. So there we go. Thanks for being with me for this video. Look at my poor thumb. I'll see you for the next one. If you'd give me a thumbs up please, that would be great, and of course you know where the buttons are to subscribe if you wish to do so. Hope this was useful. I'll see you for the next one.